You think having a valid passport and visa guarantees you'll get into the country. Think again. In 2024, over 216,000 travelers were flat out denied entry at U.S. borders. That's 600 people every single day getting turned away, detained, and sent home on the next flight. And in 2025, it's getting worse. One wrong answer, one missing document, one suspicious look from a customs officer, and your vacation becomes a nightmare. Here are the brutal realities that are catching travelers completely off guard. 20. Your social media is being monitored. Think your Instagram posts are private? Think again. In 2025, customs officers are actively monitoring social media accounts of incoming travelers, and what they find can get you denied entry before you even reach the immigration desk. The Department of Homeland Security has expanded its social media screening program, and they're looking for anything that contradicts your stated purpose of travel, suggests immigrant intent, or raises security concerns. One influencer was denied entry because her Instagram showed her apartment hunting in Los Angeles, while claiming she was visiting for tourism. The screening isn't just about recent posts either. They're going back years, looking at your connections, your comments, even your likes and shares. If you've ever posted about wanting to live in America, complained about your job back home, or shared content they consider problematic, it could be used against you. Here's what's particularly insidious about this. You won't know you're being screened until it's too late. The first sign might be getting pulled into secondary inspection, where officers will ask you to unlock your phone and explain posts from 3 years ago. Refuse, and you're automatically denied entry. 19. Expired passport validity. Rules are stricter. Your passport might be valid, but that doesn't mean it's valid enough. Many countries, including the US, require your passport to have at least 6 months of validity remaining beyond your planned departure date. Miss this rule, and you're not getting past the immigration desk. This catches thousands of travelers every year who think, as long as their passport hasn't expired, they're fine. Wrong. If you're planning a 2-week vacation and your passport expires in 4 months, you're getting denied entry and sent home on the next flight. The 6-month rule exists because immigration officers need to account for potential delays, emergencies, or changes in travel plans. If your passport is too close to expiration, they assume you might overstay your visa or get stuck in the country illegally. Even worse, some airlines won't even let you board if your passport doesn't meet the destination country's validity requirements. You could get denied at your departure airport before you even start your journey. Always check your passport expiration date at least 8 months before any international travel. 18. Name mismatches. Will destroy your trip. Here's a mistake that seems minor but can end your vacation before it starts. Any discrepancy between the name on your passport and the name on your other travel documents. We're talking about something as small as a missing middle initial or a hyphenated last name that's written differently. Immigration officers are trained to spot document fraud, and name inconsistencies are red flags. If your airline ticket says John Smith, but your passport says John Michael Smith, you could be detained for hours while they verify your identity. In some cases, you'll be denied entry entirely. This is especially problematic for women who have recently married or divorced. If your passport is in your maiden name, but your visa application used your married name, that's a problem. If you legally changed your name, but didn't update all your documents, that's a bigger problem. The solution is simple, but critical. Make sure every single document has your name written exactly the same way. Your passport, visa, airline tickets, hotel reservations, and any other travel documents must match perfectly. One letter off, and you're in trouble. 17. Criminal history. From decades ago. Think that minor offense from your college days doesn't matter anymore? Think again. U.S. immigration law has something called crimes involving moral turpitude, and the definition is broader than you might expect. Even decades-old convictions can get you denied entry. Shoplifting, drunk driving, drug possession, fraud, theft, assault. These are all considered crimes of moral turpitude. It doesn't matter if it happened 20 years ago, if you were young and stupid, or if the charges were eventually dropped. If it's on your record, it can be used to deny you entry. The enhanced screening procedures implemented in 2025 mean that background checks are more thorough than ever. Officers have access to international criminal databases, and they're using them. One traveler was denied entry because of a bar fight from 1998 that resulted in a misdemeanor assault charge. Here's the kicker. You might not even know your old offense qualifies as a crime of moral turpitude until you're sitting in an airport detention room. The definitions are vague and subject to interpretation by individual officers. What one officer considers minor, another might consider grounds for a permanent ban. 16. Drug-related offenses are an automatic. No. Any drug-related offense, no matter how minor or how long ago, is essentially an automatic denial of entry. This includes marijuana possession, even in states or countries where it's now legal. Immigration law operates under federal jurisdiction, and federally, marijuana is still illegal. One Canadian citizen was denied entry because of a marijuana possession charge from 2003, before it was legal in Canada. The officer didn't care about changing laws or the minor nature of the offense. Drug conviction equals denial, period. This extends beyond just convictions. If you admit to ever using illegal drugs, even without a conviction, you can be denied entry. Immigration officers are trained to ask probing questions about drug use, and if you lie and they find out later, that's grounds for a permanent bond for misrepresentation. The advice here is simple. If you have any drug-related history, consult with an immigration attorney before traveling. There are waiver processes available, but they take time and money. Don't assume you can just show up and hope for the best. Financial insufficiency will get you turned away. Can't prove you have enough money to support yourself during your visit. You're getting denied entry and sent home. Immigration officers need to see that you can financially support yourself without working illegally or becoming a public charge. The financial requirements aren't officially published, but officers generally want to see evidence of sufficient funds for your entire stay. This includes hotel reservations, return flight tickets, bank statements, credit cards, and cash. If you can't demonstrate financial stability, you're viewed as a risk. One backpacker was denied entry because he only had $200 cash and no credit cards for a planned 2-week vacation. The officer determined he was likely to work illegally to support himself. Another traveler was rejected because her bank statements showed irregular income, suggesting she might overstay to find work. The public charge rule is particularly strict in 2025. If officers believe you might need government assistance or social services during your stay, they can deny entry. This includes travelers with medical conditions who might need emergency care they can't afford. 14. Health-related grounds are expanding. Communicable diseases aren't the only health issues that can get you denied entry anymore. The list of inadmissible health conditions has expanded, and the screening process is more thorough than ever. Mental health conditions that officers believe could make you dangerous to yourself or others can result in denial. This includes depression with suicidal ideation, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and severe anxiety disorders. You might be required to provide medical documentation proving you're stable and not a risk. Drug addiction history, even if you're in recovery, can be grounds for denial. Officers have broad discretion to determine if your addiction history makes you inadmissible. One traveler in recovery for 5 years was denied because the officer believed he might relapse and engage in illegal drug activity. Lack of required vaccinations is another growing issue. While COVID-19 requirements have relaxed, other vaccination requirements remain. Yellow fever, meningitis, and other vaccines might be required depending on your travel history and destination. 13. Unauthorized work from previous visits. Here's one that catches people completely off guard. If you worked without authorization during any previous visit, even something as innocent as babysitting for a friend, you can be denied entry years later. The definition of work is broader than most people realize. Getting paid for any service, even informally, counts as unauthorized employment. This includes tutoring, pet sitting, helping with a friend's business, or any activity where you received compensation. One au pair was denied entry on a tourist visa because she had previously worked as a nanny without proper authorization. Another traveler was rejected because he helped a friend's restaurant during a busy weekend and accepted payment. These weren't formal employment relationships, but they still counted as unauthorized work. The enhanced database systems in 2025 make it easier for officers to track your previous activities. If there's any record of you receiving payment for services during a previous visit, it can be used against you. Social media posts, bank transfers, or even witness statements can provide evidence of unauthorized work. 12. Overstaying previous visas. This is the #1 reason for denial of entry. Overstaying a previous visa, even by a single day. The U.S. immigration system has zero tolerance for overstays, and the consequences are severe and long-lasting. If you overstayed a previous visa by more than 180 days, you're subject to a 3-year bar from re-entering the country. Overstay by more than a year, and it's a 10-year bar. These bars are automatic and don't require a formal removal proceeding. Even minor overstays can cause problems. If you overstayed by less than 180 days, you might not face an automatic bar, but officers can still deny entry based on your immigration history. They'll question your intent and your likelihood to comply with visa terms in the future. The tracking systems are sophisticated now. Officers know exactly when you entered and left the country, down to the day. If there's any discrepancy in your travel history, they'll find it. One traveler was denied because she overstayed a student visa by 3 days in 2019, something she had completely forgotten about. 11. Immigrant intent while holding non-immigrant visa. Having a non-immigrant visa like a tourist or business visa means you're supposed to have no intention of staying permanently. If an officer suspects you actually want to immigrate, you'll be denied entry even with a valid visa. This is called immigrant intent, and it's one of the most subjective reasons for denial. Officers look for clues in your behavior, your answers to questions, your travel history, and your personal circumstances. Are you single with no ties to your home country? Red flag. Do you have family in the U.S.? Red flag. Are you unemployed back home? Red flag. One young professional was denied entry because she mentioned she was exploring opportunities during her business trip. The officer interpreted this as job hunting, which suggests immigrant intent. Another traveler was rejected because she had visited the U.S. multiple times in the past year, which the officer saw as evidence she was trying to live here permanently. The questions officers ask are designed to trap you. They'll ask about your job, your family, your future plans, and your reasons for visiting. Any answer that suggests you might want to stay permanently can be used against you. Stick to your stated purpose and don't elaborate unnecessarily. 10. Inconsistent answers during questioning. Immigration officers are trained interrogators, and they're looking for inconsistencies in your story. If your answers don't match what you said on your visa application, what's in your travel documents, or what you told them 5 minutes earlier, you're in trouble. The questioning can be intense and repetitive. They'll ask the same question multiple ways to see if your answer changes. They'll ask about details from your visa application that you might not remember perfectly. They'll question you about your travel plans, your accommodations, your finances, and your intentions. One traveler was denied because she said she was staying with friends, but her visa application listed a hotel. Another was rejected because he couldn't remember the exact address of his business meeting, which the officer interpreted as lying about his purpose of travel. The key is preparation and consistency. Review your visa application before traveling. Know your itinerary inside and out. Have all your documentation organized and easily accessible. If you don't know something, say you don't know, rather than guessing and potentially contradicting yourself later. 9. False information about identity or travel purpose. Lying to an immigration officer is called misrepresentation, and it's one of the most serious violations of immigration law. If you're caught lying about anything, your identity, your purpose of travel, your background, your intentions, you can be banned from entering the country permanently. The definition of misrepresentation is broad. It includes outright lies, omissions of important information, and even innocent mistakes that officers interpret as deception. If you forget to mention a previous arrest, that can be considered misrepresentation. If you say you're visiting for tourism, but officers find evidence you're actually conducting business, that's misrepresentation. One traveler was permanently banned because she said she was single on her visa application, but was actually married. She thought it didn't matter, since her husband wasn't traveling with her, but the officer saw it as fraud. Another was banned for saying he had never been arrested, when he had actually been detained but not formally charged years earlier. The consequences of misrepresentation are severe. It's not just a denial of entry, it's a permanent bar from ever entering the country again. There are very limited waiver processes available, and they're expensive and time-consuming with no guarantee of success. 8. Suspicious behavior or travel patterns. Immigration officers are trained to spot suspicious behavior, and their definition of suspicious is broader than you might think. Nervousness, inconsistent travel patterns, unusual itineraries, or even just acting weird can trigger additional scrutiny and potential denial. Frequent short trips to the U.S. can be seen as suspicious, especially if you're not employed or don't have strong ties to your home country. Officers might suspect you're trying to live in the U.S. illegally by making frequent tourist visits. One traveler was denied because she had visited the U.S. 6 times in the past year for short trips, which the officer interpreted as evidence of immigrant intent. Unusual travel routes can also raise flags. If you're flying from London to New York, but your ticket shows stops in 3 other countries, officers might wonder why you're taking such a circuitous route. Are you trying to avoid detection? Are you carrying something illegal? The questions will be intense. Even your demeanor during questioning matters. If you're too nervous, they might think you're hiding something. If you're too calm, they might think you're experienced at deception. There's no perfect way to act, but being respectful, honest, and prepared is your best bet. 7. Security database flags or watch list matches. This is the nightmare scenario that can happen to anyone. Your name matches someone on a security watch list, and suddenly you're treated like a potential terrorist. The databases are extensive, and false matches happen more often than you'd think. The terrorist screening database contains over 1 million names. And it's not just terrorists. It includes people suspected of various crimes, immigration violations, and even individuals who have been flagged for suspicious behavior in the past. If your name is similar to someone on the list, you could be detained for hours while they verify your identity. One businessman was detained for 8 hours because his name was similar to someone on a watch list. Despite having traveled to the US dozens of times before, he was treated as a security threat until they could confirm he wasn't the person they were looking for. Another traveler missed her connecting flight because of a database flag that turned out to be a case of mistaken identity. The worst part is that you might never know why you were flagged or how to get your name cleared. The government doesn't disclose watch list contents or criteria. If you're repeatedly having problems at immigration, you might be on a list, but finding out and getting removed is nearly impossible. 6. Unlawful presence from previous trips. Unlawful presence is different from overstaying a visa, and it can be even more complicated. It refers to time spent in the U.S. without legal status, which can happen even if you never technically overstayed your authorized period of admission. This can occur if your status changed while you were in the country, if you violated the terms of your visa, or if there were administrative errors in your immigration record, for example. If you were admitted as a tourist but attended school without changing your status, that time could be considered unlawful presence. The 3 and 10-year bars apply to unlawful presence just like they do to overstays. If you accrued more than 180 days of unlawful presence, you're barred from re-entering for 3 years. More than 1 year of unlawful presence results in a 10-year bar. The calculation of unlawful presence can be complex and is often misunderstood by travelers. Immigration officers have access to detailed records of your previous stays, and they can identify periods of unlawful presence that you might not even be aware of. One traveler was denied entry because of unlawful presence that occurred when his student status expired, but he didn't leave immediately. 5. Missing required documents. Having a passport and visa isn't enough anymore. Depending on your destination and travel history, you might need additional documents like health certificates, travel authorizations, proof of onward travel, or financial documentation. Missing any required document can result in immediate denial of entry. The European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS, is coming online in 2025, requiring additional authorization for visa-free travel to Europe. Similar systems exist for other countries. If you don't have the required authorization, you won't be allowed to board your flight, let alone enter the country. Health certificates are becoming more common, especially for travelers coming from countries with disease outbreaks. Yellow fever certificates, meningitis vaccinations, and other health documentation might be required. One traveler was denied entry because she couldn't provide proof of yellow fever vaccination after visiting a country where it was endemic. Proof of onward travel is often required for tourist visas. Officers want to see that you have a return ticket or onward travel plans. If you bought a one-way ticket planning to purchase your return later, that could be seen as evidence of immigrant intent. 4. Fraudulent or borrowed documents. Using someone else's documents or altered documents is an automatic denial and can result in criminal charges. This includes using a passport that belongs to someone else, even a family member, or presenting documents that have been altered in any way. Document fraud detection technology has advanced significantly. Officers can spot alterations, forgeries, and inconsistencies that would have gone unnoticed years ago. They have access to databases that can verify the authenticity of documents from most countries. One traveler was arrested for using his brother's passport because they looked similar. Another was charged with fraud for presenting a visa that had been altered to extend the validity dates. These aren't minor infractions. They're serious crimes that can result in prosecution and permanent bans from entering the country. Even innocent mistakes can be interpreted as fraud. If your passport was damaged and repaired, if pages were replaced, or if there are any alterations, you need to get a new passport before traveling. Don't risk being accused of document fraud over something that could be easily fixed. 3. Enhanced screening procedures. Under 2025 policies. The Trump administration's maximum vetting and screening, executive orders implemented in January 2025, have fundamentally changed the immigration process. Officers now have broader authority to deny entry and are conducting more intensive screenings of all foreign nationals. The enhanced procedures include more detailed questioning, additional document verification, social media screening, and extended detention periods for secondary inspection. What used to be a 5-minute interaction with an immigration officer can now take hours. Officers are asking more personal questions about your background, your intentions, your finances, and your connections to the United States. They're looking at your phone, your social media accounts, and your electronic devices. They're verifying information with employers, schools, and family members. The discretionary power given to individual officers has increased dramatically. They can deny entry based on their subjective assessment of your credibility, your intentions, or your likelihood to comply with immigration laws. There's less oversight and fewer opportunities to appeal their decisions. 2. Increased discretionary power of officers. Immigration officers in 2025 have more power than ever to make subjective decisions about who gets admitted to the country. They don't need concrete evidence of wrongdoing. They just need to believe you might be a risk or that you might violate the terms of your admission. This discretionary power extends to all aspects of the admission process. Officers can decide that your travel pattern is suspicious, that your financial resources are insufficient, that your ties to your home country are too weak, or that your stated purpose of travel doesn't match their assessment of your intentions. One officer denied entry to a tourist because she seemed too interested in American culture during questioning, interpreting this as evidence of immigrant intent. Another rejected a business traveler because his company's website didn't adequately describe the nature of the meetings he claimed to be attending. The subjectivity of these decisions makes them nearly impossible to predict or appeal. What one officer considers acceptable, another might find suspicious. The same traveler with the same documentation might be admitted by one officer and denied by another on the same day. 1. Record numbers. 1.2 million flagged, 216,000 denied. Here's the brutal reality that should terrify every international traveler. In fiscal year 2024, 1.2 million non-citizens were initially found inadmissible at U.S. ports of entry. Of those, 216,000 were ultimately denied entry and sent home. That's 600 people every single day being turned away at American borders. These aren't just random statistics. They represent a fundamental shift in how immigration enforcement works. The denial rate among flagged travelers hit 18% in 2024, and early data from 2025 suggests it's climbing even higher. We're talking about people with valid visas, proper documentation, and legitimate reasons for travel being denied entry in record numbers. The 77.7 million international travelers who arrived in 2024 represented a significant increase from the 66.5 million in 2023. But the denial rates increased even faster than the travel volume. This means it's not just about more people traveling. It's about a more aggressive enforcement posture that's catching more travelers in its net. What makes these numbers particularly alarming is that they represent people who made it all the way to a U.S. port of entry. They had visas, they boarded planes, they flew thousands of miles, and then they were turned away at the last moment. The financial and emotional cost of these denials is devastating for the travelers involved. The trend shows no signs of slowing down. With the enhanced screening procedures implemented in 2025 and the increased discretionary power given to immigration officers, don't be a statistic. The immigration system in 2025 is unforgiving, unpredictable, and more aggressive than ever. Officers have broad discretionary power, enhanced screening tools, and a mandate to err on the side of caution when it comes to admitting foreign nationals. Every single one of these denial reasons is avoidable if you know what you're dealing with. The travelers getting denied aren't necessarily doing anything wrong. They're just unprepared for how the system actually works now. They're operating under outdated assumptions about what immigration officers care about and what will get you flagged for additional scrutiny. The key to avoiding denial is preparation, documentation, and understanding that immigration officers are looking for reasons to say no, not reasons to say yes. Your job is to make their decision as easy as possible by having all your documentation in order, your story straight, and your behavior beyond reproach. Don't assume that because you've traveled before, you know what to expect. Don't assume that because you have a valid visa, you'll be admitted. Don't assume that because you're telling the truth, you won't be questioned extensively. The system has changed, and travelers who don't adapt are the ones becoming statistics. Be prepared, be honest, be respectful, and understand that in 2025, getting denied entry is easier than ever. Don't let your next trip end at the immigration desk.